Now, quick question. Who here knows the best place to go to really show that people are messed up? Like, the saddest place, the most aggressive place where people gather. The comment section. Who here has ever been to the comment section of a Facebook post or a YouTube video? Yeah, I think we've all been there. We've all seen it. We've all experienced it. And yeah, mental health issues for sure. But here's the thing, Christians are at fault here too. I've gone to many Christian pages. One person disagrees with this, one person disagrees with this. Oh, you're messed up, you're going to hell, you don't understand, you're stupid. This is what the Bible talks about when it's talking about fools. And yeah, the comment section, it's like Mos Eisley in Star Wars. You'll never find a more place of wretched hive and scum and stuff, yeah. But there's a sermon series I've been wanting to do for a while called Blockbuster, where you take scenes from a movie and you relate it to Scripture. And so, because we've all seen movies and we've been like, oh, that's a really inspirational scene or something cool. And a lot of these things that happen in movies are biblical things. So I'm like, I can take these things that people know and correlate them to Scripture, and they can really grasp it and understand it good. But one day, I was looking at the Memes for Jesus Facebook page, and they posted a meme about a pastor doing a series similar to my idea. And I go to the comment section to read what people were thinking about that. And they're saying things like, pastors that do that are the worst. Or, is Scripture not good enough for these pastors? Things like that. And I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this sermon series. And so I held off on it. But one day I was watching something and I'm like, dude, there's a sermon in there. Like, anyone who's done teaching, have you ever seen something on TV or a movie and you're like, there's a lesson there. There's a teaching. And so I'm like, I'm going to ignore the comment section and bring a teaching for you guys today. And hopefully the message goes across well, and in the future I get to do a whole sermon series about blockbusters. Because, Jesus also used parables about, the time, and used things that they would know and understand to relate kingdom values. And this is stuff that we know and relate to, and so hopefully you guys can better understand and grasp what I'm talking about today. Now, who here has seen the movie Toy Story? Marco, have you seen Toy Story? Jacob, have you seen Toy Story? Maybe. Marco, who's your favorite Toy Story character? Who? Woody? All right, I was more of a Buzz Lightyear dude. But that's okay. Yeah. Now, who remembers Buzz Lightyear's big issue in the movie? What was his big internal struggle? He kept thinking he was a real space ranger. He's like, I'm a space ranger. His helmet gets lifted up and he's like, doesn't know if it's actually good air, not knowing he's actually a toy. And the whole movie, Buzz is like, you're a toy. He's like, I'm a space ranger. So he had kind of this identity crisis. Well, later on, Toy Story was a huge hit, and years later, they had a TV special called Toy Story That Time Forgot. And after I saw that, that's when I was like, there's a message there that's really good. And so I want to give you a little bit of context before I show you the clip from the TV special. So this is after the toys moved on from Andy. They're with Bonnie now. And they went to go have a play date with one of Bonnie's friends. And it was right after Christmas, so he just got a bunch of new toys, and he also got a new video game system. So he was just playing video games, hasn't played with his toys at all. And so since the toys don't know that they're toys, they're still in their kind of primal stage of thinking they are just whatever toy they are. And so he got the battle swords, these dinosaurs that have armor, and the only thing they know is fighting and battles. All they thought they were was warriors, and all they could do was fight. And they laughed at the idea of surrender. Like, if you're a battle sore, all you know is fighting and winning. If someone says you should surrender, how are you going to react? Never surrender. I'm a battle sore. Yeah. But eventually, one of the toys convinced, like one of the head battle sores, hey, surrender is actually something for your good. And so now, let's roll the clip.
Reptilus, your world is bigger than you know. Let me show you who you really are.
But I am a battle sore.
You can be so much more. And you know it. Reptilus, it's your kid who chooses what you're going to be. It could be a dinosaur, baby reindeer, or something you never even think of. It's about being there for your kid. It's about
surrender.
Huh? This bus is out of gas. Dang it, the power's down. We can wait inside with the polar bears and the salamanders until they find us. Check the supplies. We have hamburgers, biscotti, pancakes, chocolate milk, gummy worms.
Oh, what planet is he from?
Neptune. Or maybe Florida. We crash landed on the party planet.
Aliens everywhere!
Wait, where's my baby reindeer? There she is! He's adorable! Come on, Mecha Monster, let's fight some crime!
That was glorious.
It was, wasn't it?
It's always so great to have Bonnie around. Let's have her back next week.
So, shall we say Tuesday around 3:30?
No, it's on Disney Plus though. Subscribe to Disney Plus and get the no. Just kidding. This ain't a commercial, you guys. No, but there is power in surrender, you guys. There's peace, there's comfort, and actually freedom that comes when we surrender. And so I'm titling this teaching, The Art of Surrender. I'm going to show you guys some areas that you can surrender in that actually make you stronger and better off. Now, there's a couple of definitions to surrender that I'm going to give you guys because they'll help relate what I'm talking about more. One definition of surrender is cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. And another definition is abandon oneself entirely to a powerful emotion or influence. So remember these definitions because I'll be using both to highlight different areas of surrender. Now, the first step to find freedom and peace like the battle sores is to surrender your identity. This is important because it will be the basis for all the other areas of surrender. Now, that earlier definition of surrender that said abandoning oneself to an emotion or influence, this is similar to what was going on in the clip, but here's what's wrong with that definition. That doesn't actually make the surrender beneficial necessarily. Because the surrender being based on a feeling and influence doesn't always work, because here's the question. What if the feeling or influence is actually wrong? Ooh. So you could be surrendering to something that's actually wrong and not right. Like, let's say, oh, I'm a husband and father now, and I had all my identity and surrendered to that. Well, I'm more than just that. What would happen if, my wife left me? I'd have an identity crisis all of a sudden. So that's changing. That's not a solid foundation. And so, similar things happen. People put their identity in relationships. The relationship ends, boom, identity crisis. We put our identity in our jobs. Oh, we lose a job, identity crisis. Well, I thought I was a FedEx warehouse worker. What am I going to do now? But when we surrender our identity to God and the unchanging foundation that He's laid for us, then when all this other stuff happens, we can still find peace knowing that we are still who He says we are. So what does the Bible say about our identity? I think the first most important area to see is Genesis 1:27, when we were first created. It says, "So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them." So men and women, we are created in the image of God. And what's really cool about that is that gives you inherent value. And then in Romans 5:8, it says, "But God demonstrates His own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." And so this wasn't after we accepted Jesus that God loved us. He loved us before that, while we were still sinners. So foundationally, we are loved by God. And so these two things are astronomical, because when we put them together, it gives us our foundation of our identity. And that is that you are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. Let me say that again. You are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. Now, if you accept Jesus, then being a child of God would be added to that. But even just the original identity of before even accepting Jesus, we're still inherently valuable and loved by God. And that has so much peace and freedom in it. Because again, let's say you lose your job. What are you? Yeah, you are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. What if your significant other says, "I hate you, I never loved you, we're done, no one could ever love you"? What are you? You are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. And what if you're trying really hard to get clean and sober, but you relapse? Ooh, what are you? You are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. And so that right there can give you so much peace, because it's not based on works, it's not based on mistakes, it's not based on relationships. That's just who you are. Guys, don't let your identity be in worldly relationships. Don't let it be something you do. Jesus didn't have his identity as the carpenter. He wasn't, "I'm a carpenter." No. And don't let your struggle be your identity either. "Oh, I'm homeless, I'm an addict." No. Those are things you struggle with. But who are you? You are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. Because when you let struggle become your identity, then shame builds. And it's even harder to find that identity again. And so let's surrender our identity right now, not thinking it's our job, our relationship, what we do, but foundationally that you are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. Surrender your identity to that unchanging foundation that God laid for you. And when you surrender your identity to that, there's peace and comfort. And not just because of feeling, because feelings are fleeting, but rather in the fact that you are valuable and loved and created in the image of God. And so you can fall back on a fact, not just a feeling. Now the next thing to surrender is our actions. Now, in that clip, the Battlesaur surrendered his identity to being his owner's toy. But let's say the owner wanted to pretend the Battlesaur was hugging another toy. But the Battlesaur decided instead, I want to bite their arm off. He's not actually living with the identity of being the toy. So for us that are children of God, when we add that to our identity, yes, we have that solid foundation of being valuable and loved, because even if we make mistakes, we'll still have that love and value. But surrendering our actions to his ways kind of goes hand in hand with surrendering our identity to him. And the Bible would agree that we should be surrendering our actions to God. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Jesus, in Christ Jesus, for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them." So it doesn't say we were created in Jesus for whatever we decide we want to do. It says we were created for good works. There's something he's called us to do. And so if we're not doing good works, we should be surrendering those actions and actually be doing good works. Romans 12:1-2 says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Again, here we see the idea of surrendering our lives to God, meaning following his ways, kind of dying to ourselves and obeying him. Not to the ways of the world. But that's good, because what does it say about God's will? It says his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And so we're surrendering to things that are good. It's like, well, I want to go out and sleep around and party and do all these things. But in reality, if you surrender that to what God says to do, we're actually doing something that's more beneficial to us and good for us. And so we should be surrendering our actions. But that's easier said than done, because who here wants to do what they want to do a lot of the time? Yeah. And the world's the same way. They want to do whatever they want to do. They don't agree with what God's will is, what he says is right and wrong, so they do their own thing. And right now in the world isn't the only time that's ever happened. Judges 21:25 says, "In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit." So in other words, everyone just did whatever they wanted to do. And who kind of sees this happening right now? I see that a lot right now. And that has bred a lot of conflict as of late. And so I'm going to get into a little bit more intellectual language for a little bit to kind of bring things home with this point. But here the world is toying with the idea of moral subjectivism and relativism. And this idea could be talked about for hours and weeks, but I'm going to try and consolidate this for you just to right here. And so I have a quick basic overview of moral subjectivism. So moral subjectivism is the idea that morality is subjective and relative to each individual person, and that there are no universal moral standards. So in other words, there's no moral facts, like this is wrong and always wrong no matter what, or this is right, always right, no matter what. And so there are some key ideas in moral subjectivism. The first is individual perspective, which means moral subjectivism is based on individuals' personal perspective of what is right or wrong. And then there's personal opinion, which means moral statements are just a matter of personal opinion and express our own feelings, not necessarily that that thing is factually right or wrong. It's just in my opinion. There are no objective moral truths, so moral subjectivism teaches that there are no objective moral truths. and there should be no argument or disagreement, and that is because morality depends on each person's principles. So not that it's factually right or wrong. So if you say, oh, that's right or wrong for you, I'm like, okay, cool, because it's based on you. But here's the issue with moral subjectivism. Even people that believe moral subjectivism is true, they don't act like it. Now, what do I mean by that? Because get this. As soon as you do something that you think is right for you, but they disagree with, are they usually like, oh, but you think that's right? Okay. No, what usually happens? Yeah. They're like, you're wrong, actually. Yeah, so this idea that, oh, right and wrong are dependent on the individual, but as soon as your right is different than their wrong, it's you're wrong, actually. And so there's conflict that breeds in that. I watched a question and answer time after I watched a debate and lecture online at a college. And it was about the pro-life and the pro-choice positions. And I'm not going to get into that, but someone who was very against what the pro-life person was saying how wrong that speaker was, and that the speaker should be ashamed of what they were doing. And the person then yelled that people should be able to do whatever they want. So that's a moral subjectivism claim. People should do whatever they want, whatever's right for them. But here's the thing. Was she living that out? Oh, people should be able to do whatever they want. If that was true, should she have even been there going against what that person was saying? Yeah, no. No, it's like people should be able to do whatever they want, except for you. You can't be telling us what to do. Yeah. Yeah, because she thought she was right, and they're wrong. And I asked the youth group that same question. I said, who thinks people should be able to do whatever they want? And all the youth group was like, yeah, people should be able to do whatever they want. And that sounds nice. Yeah, I want to be able to do whatever I want. People should be able to do that. Then I asked them, so should I be able to steal your cell phone and burn down your house if I want to? And they instantly went, well, not that. Obviously, not that. They're like, I guess there should be some limitations. I guess there should be some rules. But then again, we have that conflict of, well, I think this should be the rule. I think this should be the rule. And so that's where all this conflict is coming from. And this idea is becoming more and more popular as people move away from Christianity. It's like, oh, there actually is no true right and wrong. I should be able to do whatever I want. And I've watched debates and discussions between Christians and atheist philosophers, and the consensus that they both come to is agreement that if there is no God, then moral subjectivism, even though it's difficult to live out, would actually be true. That if there's no actual moral standard, which would be God's nature, then it would kind of be just up to people deciding for themselves what is right and wrong. There would not be factual, objective morals, which means true, right, and wrong. And so we see more and more conflict because, like in Judges, everyone's doing as they see fit. It's like if we were going on a road trip and there was no destination and there was a fork in the road. And someone says, oh, we should go right. Someone says, oh, we should go left. Who's right in that instance? It actually doesn't matter. If there's no destination, you could go right or left. But if there was a destination, let's say you were wanting to go to the movies and it was on the right side of the road, and someone said, hey, we need to go right, and someone said, we got to go left, then we would be able to say, oh, actually, you're wrong. But if everyone can do, if there's no destination, if there is no moral standard, then it is like opinion-based. But for us as Christians, we believe that God exists and that he is the foundation for right and wrong, his nature. Now, the moral compass doesn't point at us, because if all our moral compasses pointed at us, we'd all just be stuck where we are. We wouldn't be able to go anywhere. But rather, the moral compass points to him and his nature. So if God exists, in fact, things aren't subjective, but rather objective. Because if there is an actual moral standard, it isn't my opinion saying, oh, stealing Pastor Dave's wallet is okay. It's actually God says stealing is wrong. And so even if I say it's okay, it's not. And so, if God exists, in fact, things aren't subjective, rather objective. So we must surrender to his way, whether we like it or not. Being more like him is the destination we should be going. Not just constantly saying, oh, my way is right. Because again, that breeds conflict. Because if I keep saying my way is right, and Ken keeps saying, no, my way is right, there's going to be more and more conflict. And so in the church, that's what we should be doing. We should be pursuing Jesus and his way. I think we can all agree on that. You know, the earlier definition of surrender says, cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. We should be submitting to his authority, him telling us what to do. I can't say, God, you're wrong, actually. Yeah, that'd be pretty, dumb is a pretty good thing to say. Yeah, that would be pretty dumb. That's not me surrendering. But when we surrender to his authority, that brings peace because we're following an actual standard, an actual right or wrong, not just a bunch of different opinions. We don't want too many cooks in the kitchen because things get crazy. Which way do I go? Well, the way's already been shown for us. And so we can have peace in knowing, hey, if we're just following what Jesus says to do, we're on track. Yeah, there's the way. And here's something that's a little bit funny. Even if we are wrong about God, well, let's say someone somehow was like, see, this is absolute 100% undeniable proof that God doesn't exist. Well, then if moral subjectivism is true, even if what we say right now is right for us, it's still right. So they can't be like, you're wrong. So I think that's a little funny. But there's still this issue that not everyone believes in God. So they might do stuff different. So how do we deal with that conflict then? With more surrender, you guys. We need to surrender the right to hate. Matthew 5:44 says, love your enemies. So you might think, oh, I want to hate this person. I want to get even with this person. I want revenge with this person. But we got to surrender that right. Because the world says, oh, if someone did this to you, go get them back. But God says, love your enemies. So we need to surrender that right to hate. So guess what? Even if someone is yelling at you saying, you're wrong, surrender to God and surrender the right to hate and still love them and respect them. Does that mean that all of a sudden we think what they're saying is right? No. But there's this idea that if you respect me, then I'll respect you. But here's the thing. If someone disrespects me and then I'm disrespectful to them and they're thinking the same thing, it's just going to be endless disrespect back and forth. And so we're called to be the ones that break that cycle. We're called to love our enemies and respect them. So we shouldn't be thinking, if you do that, then I'll do this. We should be thinking, God says I should love you no matter what. So either way, I'm going to respect you and I'm going to love you. And we see this with Peter and John in Acts. They were preaching about Jesus and they were told to stop. And here's what happened. In Acts 4:18 to 21, it says, then they called them in again and commanded them not to speak or teach at all in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied, which is right in God's eyes, to listen to you or to him? You be the judges. As for us, we cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard. After further threats, they let them go. Notice Peter and John didn't go, listen here, you idiots. How dare you tell us what to do? You guys are stupid and fools. Now, they probably would have been arrested after that. But they still showed respect even to those trying to silence them. They still showed love to them. They still showed respect. And they just simply, respectfully declined. So someone says, hey, you can't be talking about Jesus. They're like, hey, I understand. Just keep talking respectfully. And if eventually they're like, move on, you don't have to fight them. You can simply be like, okay. And go on and preach Jesus somewhere else sometimes. Because, it's like, we don't have to fight you guys. The battle's already won. We're just doing what we're called to do. Talk about Jesus. If they had their moment to hear him, okay, let's go somewhere else. We don't have to fight all the time. We can surrender and trust that the seed has been planted and God can be the one that makes it grows. Because let me tell you, I've seen some Christian comment sections and that need to get back to this keeping peace and showing respect even when people come against you. It's sad to see, but we need to get back to this as well. Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. So again, our peace should not be dependent on others. It should be what we're striving towards. It should be what our actions lead towards. It doesn't say, once someone else is being kind to you and doing good, then you show them peace. It says, hey, as far as it depends on you, you live peaceful with them. So we got to surrender the right to hate. And when you surrender the right to hate, what actions does that leave you with? That leaves you with peace, love, kindness towards people. Because if I can't hate you, I guess the only other action to do is love you. So we got to surrender the right to hate. Because again, there's power in surrender, you guys. When we surrender our identity, it gives us an unshakable foundation of self-worth that other words, actions, names, and titles can't take away from you. And when we surrender our ways to his, the path is easier to walk. We see the steps that we should be taking. And even though there are those who may say that we're going the wrong way, if we surrender the right to hate, we'll still be able to love and have peace on our walk. And here's a question. Why would God even tell us to love our enemies? Because what was that first surrendered identity that we all have? They are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. So why would God tell us to love our enemies? Because they are a valuable and loved person created in the image of God. So even if they yell at you, even if they spit at you, that's the image of God right there. That's someone who's valuable to God, someone who's loved by God. And if we're supposed to be like God, they should be valuable and loved by us as well. And so there is power in surrender. Thank you.